on your video. We want to make this an interactive session and make sure that you're getting from it the information that you really want to learn about online child protection. My name is Sienna Dukowski, and I'm a director at Lady Askari. And today we're going to talk about some of the risks that children face when they are using technology and some things that you and your children can do in order to be safe online. Definitely feel free to just jump in and chat, use the chat box as well. As I said, we wanted this to be an interactive session, so we can get started. Let me share my screen. All right. So, of course, the program is called What You Need to Know About Online Child Protection, and it's hosted today by Lady Askari and She Hacks Kenya. To let you know a little bit more about my company, Lady Askari, we are a female-focused risk management company. And what that really means is that our primary goal is to be a risk management company and provide risk management services such as executive protection, secure journey management, CCTV management, embedded security managers, and things of that nature. But why I say we're female focused is because we look at how to bring more women into the industry, especially at higher levels. And so in doing that, we really have looked to see where women thrive within the industry. And one area, of course, is child protection. And so we've partnered with She Hacks to just talk about some of the threats that have emerged, especially with the onset of COVID-19 and more children using the internet these days. So the first question that we're really posing is, how are children using the internet? So studies have shown that, children use the internet in all sorts of ways. And I'm not here to have a discussion about how technology is bad. We know how helpful and entertaining it is. And in fact, it's really become an integral part of our everyday lives. Even before the onset of COVID-19, children across the country were using some form of technology. And that included, as you can see on this chart, movies, adult content, music, games, cartoons, even getting into betting and things like that. So, Rebecca, how do your kids use the technology? I see you're typing. It would be great if you could just respond to some of the questions and even engage through chat or audio. So what studies have shown is that children use the internet for four main things: to learn, which we've seen actually a really big increase in the learning space with the onset of COVID-19, especially when during the lockdowns, everybody they really wanted to engage their children, and using online learning platforms was really the only way to do it. Children are also creating and viewing, posting different content, communicating with their friends, and playing games. The different types of programs that children are most often using are Snapchat, which is a messaging app where texts and images are only briefly accessible to the people who are communicating. And so in the mind of the users, it's similar to a conversation. So when the words disappear, the content disappears. But we all know that that's not really the case. And I know that we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Additionally, they play games like Words with Friends, Minecraft, a new emerging, a very popular new system is Roblox as well. Creating content happens on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, different chatting programs such as WhatsApp, and of course, YouTube. And so you're really seeing a lot of children, even young children, on utilizing technology. But what they don't know is that there are some risks that are associated with this use. Eve, do you know of any of the risks that are faced when children are on using technology?
Hi, Sienna. There would be a number of risks that children face when they're using technology. One of them would be bullying, and also the key one, which is a little bit problematic for young children, is data protection. More like a third party would request so much data from that child, like what their date of birth, details about their parents, which again makes such a platform unsecure for young children if we don't provide secure ways in which they can use these platforms.
Yeah, those are really great examples. Rebecca, do you have any examples?
Yes, I do see. And my example would be potential cyberbullying. We've heard of kids being bullied, and some being bullied to the point where they want to commit suicide because they feel like they don't belong and connect in those circles that they would want to online.
Absolutely. Those are really big threats that children face. So we'll start with bullying, which was mentioned by both Eve and Rebecca. The biggest thing is that people are able to hide behind the computers and say things that they would never say face to face for fear of what the consequences are. And so cyberbullying has really taken on a very, very big mind of its own because of that. You almost get to see children really almost recreating themselves as new people, behind the screen. And for whatever reason, it just enables them and emboldens them to be so much meaner. So cyberbullying is a really big problem that we've seen as children are using internet more. And then, as Eve mentioned, children just don't necessarily have the level of judgment that adults will have when it comes to protecting information. And this really opens the door to online fraud, hacking, extortion, identity theft. So it's really important that children are made aware that they shouldn't be telling people everything and giving people information that could expose them. In addition to bullying and the poor judgment when it comes to the movement of information, one of the big issues that we have are online predators. Online predators using the screens and creating new personalities in order to do what's called grooming children. And so what that means is that if a child is having a bad day or was bullied at school and they make a post that says, "Oh, everybody thinks I'm so ugly," the person who is a predator could take that and say, "No, you're beautiful. I think you're beautiful. Let's chat in this private chat room." And they create a friendship that's based on, just an avatar that they may be looking at or a fake picture. And what that can lead to are inappropriate relationships with strangers that could be very different than who they're posing to be online. And we're seeing that this has led to a lot of sexual abuse from predators and things like that. Also exposure to pornography as well. This online platforms have also become the main use of people who are actually trying to lure people, not just children, into situations of human trafficking. Back in 2014, Kenya was identified as a hub of human trafficking just because there's so much transit through Kenya within the region. And although the country has done an excellent job in reducing the instances of human trafficking, they've found that 1 in 6 people who are trafficked are children under the age of 18. And 40% are actually lured by family members or friends that they know. Although it mostly happens to girls, boys can also be kidnapped as well. And they're looking for labor, forced labor, whether it's in the form of servitude or sexual exploitation. And so, creating these online friendships with people who are actually strangers becomes increasingly dangerous because you never know the motives of the person that you've never really met, never really interacted with. And so it's just important that we understand how serious some of these risks can be. And you're hearing all of these stories these days of children getting kidnapped. And a lot of it does derive from interactions online. Another really major risk to children is actually screen time addiction. As mentioned during COVID, there were so many times when we as parents, myself included, found it so much easier to get work done if I could just plop my kids in front of their iPad. I admit it, I did it. But then what we saw as a society is that children became and people became really interested in being in front of the screen all of the time. And so many people started seeing addiction with it. And you see it in gaming a lot, where they're just not even focusing on eating and drinking. It's just about beating the next level. So screen time addiction is when being in front of a screen, whether it be the phone, the television, your games, your computer, becomes all consuming. And the things that you used to enjoy, you don't even enjoy anymore. So you used to be on the part of the football club, and now you don't even want to go practice and interact with people. You used to love going out to dinner with your family, and now that just gets in the way of screen time. Just like any addiction, they're actually linking screen time addiction to, it's being classified as a mental health issue these days because it's something that would actually need a level of treatment in order to help overcome that addiction. And so these are just some of the risks that children are exposed to these days. In addition to, things that are very obvious, like the bullying, in terms of just, saying mean things, what has also happened is that coded languages have now developed within technology use. Many of them are either being used to just be mean, so a lot of it correlates with the bullying that we spoke about earlier, and then some of it actually is sexually explicit. And you're seeing particularly in gaming platforms that have third-party chat systems that aren't as closely monitored, the use of these different emoji languages. And people are able to say things that are really upsetting, and it really amounts to cyberbullying. And also this is, just how people can also continue to groom and, give lewd suggestions to the children that they're talking about. So it's important for parents and children to understand what these different forms of communication exist and what to do when they come across it. And we'll share that information a little bit later. So the question becomes, what do we do? For me, do we ban the internet? Obviously, it's risky, but we also know that crossing the street can be risky because you can be hit by a car, but we're not going to stop crossing the street, just like we're not going to ban the internet. And so what I would, I'm happy to admit again that not only did I very easily during the early days of the pandemic, put my kids in front of the iPad, I also didn't really have many safeguards in place because I just didn't really know about the risks so blatantly. And then we started having issues of classrooms being hacked and people, kids being exposed to adult content during their classes and things like that. And it made me think about what I should be doing to keep my kids safe and what should be done to keep children in general safe. So now, we restrict the screen time. The kids only have screen time on the weekends for a limited amount of time. We talk to them about the dangers, and we also pay attention to what it is that they're getting into. My kids are 5 and 3 years old, and sometimes I'm amazed, like the first time they bypassed the time limit, I was like, why can you do that? And so you realize that children just learn so quickly how to use these systems. So it's important for us to understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, and have these conversations with them so that they can enjoy the internet while staying safe. So I just want to pass on some resources. As I mentioned, there are a number of very serious risks that children can face and families can face. Really, the risks are the same for adults online as well. And there are resources out here if you ever find yourself in a bind. You can reach out to the DCI Anti-Trafficking and Child Protection Unit. There's the police hotline 999. I know a lot of people don't think that it works, but it does. I test it every once in a while. You can also reach out to Lady Askari, and we would be happy to help to navigate through any problems you or your friends or family are having. And then there's an organization out of the US called Protect Us Kids, and they're really focused on the vulnerabilities that children face and as it relates to human trafficking. And they have a number of really great resources about that topic. So if anybody has any questions so far, but otherwise we will move on to the next half of the program in terms of what children can do in order to actually stay safe, now that I've laid out all of the risks.
Okay. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Let me share the second part, I believe, Sienna.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, a little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Evelyn Kilel. I'm from Shihaks, Kenya, and I also work at Safaricom as a cybersecurity engineer. So Shihaks basically is a nonprofit organization that supports women into cybersecurity, and we now have a program for for kids, which is what we are doing right now. So yeah, that's it of the introduction. Okay, so I'll take you through the different threats and countermeasures that kids face when they're participating in the different online activities. Okay. Okay, so what are the different online risks for children? Maybe Rebecca, could you mention a number, or Sienna, that you feel you face the same?
So I would say, you know, of course, there are a bunch that I've mentioned, but I think that we really have a hard time dealing with like just understanding what is a friend online. So I think that that's a really big risk.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I'll take you based on what Sienna has mentioned. With that, children can fall into social engineering attacks in terms of once they provide, let's say, data to a malicious actor, they can now use that data for other purposes. So when they fall for scams, what happens? Your child or extensive wise to the parents can get compromised to even getting the different passwords for the different platforms they have. Then the second one would be posting private information. So I think Sienna had mentioned this earlier, and when a child is compromised online, what happens? Since they don't have a better judgment in terms of what they need to provide or not, then they can provide more information than what they're supposed to. Then the third one is unsecure browsing. So for unsecure browsing, I think we're all familiar with a little bit of encryption to the different platforms that we use. And with that, I can give you an example. Maybe I access a website or a link. But I think just to add on it, it should have like a padlock at the end of it, and an S when on a site. So it has to be HTTP with an S, and the S stands for secure platform. Then the final one is cyber predators and cyberbullying, which I believe Sienna had really extensively given explanations for that. I'll share additional resources to how to support on cyberbullying on the same as we finalize on this. So secondly, any questions there before I proceed? Okay. So what are the different countermeasures that we can have to curb what I have just stated above? So among them is password safety. How many know about the different password safety we have? So for password safety, it has different features in terms of the password length and different characters, and and whether it has special characters, plain text for the same. So with the different passwords, you should at least set 10 characters, 8 to 10 characters. Use passphrases, which would be, let's say, something a little bit lengthy. You cannot forget, like the children are playing as a password with a more secure platform in terms of you can switch an I to one, and then you can also add an E to an at. So with that, you've mixed up the different characters together. Then the third one, the part of password safety is two-factor authentication. Like for example, when you're accessing Gmail, what happens? You have a second way to secure your Gmail in terms of adding a token to it. So with that, you're able to use your phone to authenticate your email that it's actually you who's signing in. Then the third one, which is a little bit more complex for us who are still learning, is password manager. So for password manager, you try have a password key store where you just put in all the different passwords you've set up, and then you can just remember one master password. Among the password mechanisms is one of them, which is a key one, and a little bit of easy to use is called LastPass. Then the second one is KeyPass. I think there are a number of them, but the one I could recommend for different parents and to support their children on is LastPass. Okay, moving on. I think any questions there? Okay. So at this age, our children get access to our mobile phones. How do you secure them even as an adult? What happens? You need to password protect, one, and among them is like initiating that talk. We have different ways to secure our passwords, our phones, depending on the phone that you're using. So you can use a pattern, you can use a password, you can even use your fingerprints. So with that, if someone else accesses your phone, what happens? They're not able to do anything, nor are they able to even extract any data like send money and things like that on your M-Pesa. Then the second one is around permissions. I think I can dwell a lot on permissions and also downloads. For permissions, you need to grant permissions to whether when you're downloading something, can it save on your drive? Because if you download something and it's malicious, what happens when you open it? Someone who had set that particular malicious file, they're able to now access your phone and extract data from it. Then the third one and the most common one is the most vulnerable one, which is disabling the features in terms of are you using Bluetooth and why have you left it on? If you're not using it, you should turn it off. And then there's the location aspect, because with location, someone is able to, if they're able to compromise your phone, they can now drill down to which place or which station you are in. Then finally, avoid the use of public Wi-Fi. How many of us love to use Java, to go to Java? Do you always ask for the password?
There was a time when I did that, I can admit, but I don't do that anymore. But whenever I get a little pop-up on my phone that says free Wi-Fi available at Art Cafe, I'm like, ooh, you know, but I've changed my ways.
At least you took your lessons home. That's like
your lessons.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So for public Wi-Fi, stay away from them, because if at all an attacker somewhere sitting down, sniffing the different traffics or trying to see the networking element where I'm able to view the different traffic going out in that particular Wi-Fi that is publicly available. What happens? I'm able to now, if at all you're doing internet banking transactions, I'm now able to compromise it and reroute the fund transfer to my account. Yeah. Okay. So the fourth part would be, what are the different ways in which we can participate in computer safety? How many of us are familiar about webcams? So basically, okay.
And I mean, I understand that I should have a cover on my webcam, but but I don't. And so, yeah, sorry.
Interesting. But yeah, if at all you're in a place where you're not supposed to turn on your video, you can even put a basic sellotape there to cover that webcam, because that is the most accessible way you can have. And then when you need to use it, you can now turn it on. Then the second part is beware of links. I think I had mentioned earlier in terms of, is it a secure link? And also, if you're accessing your emails, do you receive spam emails, spam messages, and things like that? So if it's already pushed by spam by Google, what happens? It's already something that they flagged it on their side that this is not secure for someone to access. Then the third element to that is having an antivirus in the different machines we use. What's the role of an antivirus? It's basically to protect us against the malicious threats that can come into your laptop, in terms of what if you downloaded malicious links when you didn't know about it, or you downloaded malicious softwares and installed them. An antivirus can help you clean up your machine and clear all the malicious content inside it. Then finally, physical cyber security safety. How many of us just pick USB cables whenever they see them? I think that's a yes, that's a no from the participants. So basically, it's more like a bait when you find a flash disk somewhere, because maybe a hacker out there, or let's say a cybersecurity engineer was trying to test whether you're familiar with your surrounding and you do not trust anything and everything that you find. So with that, when you let's say it has malicious contents, what happens when you plug it into your computer? Someone would have set up different elements where they can now be able to remotely access your machine from there, and they can now take full control of your machine, which is a little bit of a danger zone where we are getting ourselves into.
So, there are times when like organizations give out USB thingies and, as promotional materials. So should we just assume that that is dangerous and not use it?
From a cyber perspective, I can just say always be paranoid. So never trust anyone, anything, not your organization. Maybe they wanted to test how keenly you perceive cybersecurity, or you perceive security for your platforms. But some of them are genuine, and especially from an organization level, I cannot discount that. But always be paranoid. Okay. Now, the next one would be about social media safety. Let's say you have a Facebook account. How do you secure it?
I personally use my password manager. Sorry, somebody else was gonna.
Two-factor authentication.
Yes. Yeah. You'd be surprised I've been hacked once on Instagram also. And like, I'm a security engineer, I shouldn't be the one falling for these particular scams. So basically, for such, what happens is when you're on Instagram, let's say, for example, you have the choice to choose to put your profile to be private. And secondly, be watchful of the information that you post out there, because among the things is, once posted out there, the internet never forgets the information that you push there. And secondly, there's a two-factor authentication that Maria has just mentioned. So with that, you're able to have a second factor, and someone cannot automatically overtake or compromise your accounts. And cyber online safety or social media safety applies as what we are normally told by parents. Don't talk to strangers, don't accept any gifts from anyone. So same to online, you shouldn't talk to strangers. And avoid sharing too much information for the same. Then don't click on any links or attachments. Maybe Rebecca, you can say something.
Yeah, Eve, I'd like you to kindly elaborate on the don't talk to strangers bit, because this is social media. How do you tell kids not to talk to strangers, and yet most of us connect with strangers on social media platforms?
I can use LinkedIn, for example. In among the people you've connected with, how many do you know?
So most of the people I'm connected with are people who are my family and friends or colleagues or former schoolmates. But I do have a bunch of strangers on there. So if I'm talking to my kid, I'm wondering, how do you tell them not to talk to strangers? Because they may have strangers who are on their social media contacts. How would I elaborate that for them to understand?
Okay, maybe I can pick a little bit on the Facebook side because that's the one that is most vulnerable to cyberbullying for young children. So with that, any name that the kid is not familiar with, can they reach out to you? Or maybe Sienna, you can add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the same way that you discuss don't talk to strangers physically is the exact same way that you would talk about it online. Obviously, even in person, you meet new people, but you don't put yourself in a situation where you're going places with new people, where you're giving them your location and telling them. So online, that translates into, telling them, my mom is going to be away for the weekend and things like that. So we know that the reality is on these platforms, they are talking to strangers and they are interacting with strangers, but it really should take the same, it's the same approach in that you don't tell and reveal everything to people you don't know because you don't know their intentions. And I think the conversation that I've had with my children is, you really can't trust everybody, and be wise about how you talk to people that you don't know and what you say to them. And certainly never agree to meet up with anybody because you don't know them. And when you're talking to strangers and the conversation starts to feel a little weird, tell me, make sure. I think that the biggest thing is communicating these dangers with your children and having the open discussions about the fact that these are the risks that present themselves. And I'm here to help you navigate those risks. So that has been my approach as a mother in having these discussions. But I totally hear what you're saying, and these online gaming platforms in particular really open kids up to having conversations with strangers. But what we as parents need to understand is that these are the avenues that people who don't have good intentions are using to interact with our children. So that's how I would frame the conversation. I hope that was helpful.
So Rebecca, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think I have a feeling. I've gotten a feel of what Sienna is talking about. I just my concern is, especially when you are not with the child 24/7 and you do talk and have open conversations about interactions with strangers, but then you leave them with tech devices. I'm wondering how much emotional bandwidth or even like cognition the kids have to to be able to filter who is a stranger online and what the intentions are. But yeah, that's still a sort of a concern, but I do understand that we still have our role to play as parents anyway, online or offline.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the more often you have these conversations and the more open you are about it. That's why during this program, like, even though I'm supposed to be one of the risk experts, I will happily tell you all of the missteps that I've taken as a parent. And some of them are just out of ease, but to be able to correct it and understand and kind of walk the journey with my kids, having these conversations often and just trusting that they are absorbing at least a little bit of the information as you continue to have these conversations. I mean, at the end of the day, all of our parents told us not to talk to strangers, and we've made it this far, even though we've interacted with strangers a million times in reality. So I just think those conversations are more beneficial than we give them credit to be. And we just have to trust our kids to also navigate these dangers, which is super scary, by the way.
Yeah. I think I can add to what Sienna said and basically talk to them. I believe you're all human and they can listen to you if you keenly talk to them. So I think it's changed a little bit in terms of there's now old ways in how our parents raised us and how parents right now are raising their children, because there's so much technology to it. So with that, the key one would be talking to them. And I think for the few sessions I've had with parents, some children would take the initiative and say, Mom, there's this person who's been texting me so much and I don't know how to respond or things like that. So they're open to conversations also. Okay, so that's it for social media safety, unless Maria or Sienna, you want to add something to it? Cool. So I think more like this, what we've covered, we also need to go to gaming safety, where most of our children access or go to for the different online games that they play. So for that also, same as I said earlier, we use strong passwords for the different gaming accounts, because the different children would have to sign up as a certain user, either using their own emails or something like that. Then also there's a difference between free Wi-Fi available, where if you access the wrong sites, what happens? You get pop-ups like win an iPhone, and it will be delivered to you. So with that, just know the difference between legitimate sites and non-legitimate sites, where for gaming options, you just download softwares or gaming softwares or applications from the official sites that they have done so. Then the final one is, among which most children are vulnerable to, is sharing too much information with strangers again. So you see, that's like a cycle of what is going around the different our children when they're online, where they might not have better judgment in terms of how much information are they sharing to a gaming platform or the different streaming sites. Yeah. Sina, do you have something to add for that?
Yeah, as I had mentioned earlier, Roblox has become a very popular gaming site. And we've been asked a few questions in our previous sessions about it, so I just wanted to quickly talk about it. Some of the main risks that they have with this site are, it gets back to cyberbullying. So there are opportunities for third-party chat rooms that don't get monitored the same way as the official chat rooms do. And that's when they start having more sexualized and violent talks. So it's something to be very careful about, as well as sexualized avatars on these gaming sites. There are often people who will actually record their games and then post them on YouTube. And this is something that children should absolutely avoid, because when they're on the gaming sites, as I said, there are monitors who make sure that things are, meet certain regulations. But when they get converted to YouTube, we're finding that there's a lot of sexualized and violent themes that are added to the games, as well as more of that coded language that I was talking about earlier. So those are just some of the things to really watch out for. So piggybacking on what was said before, we really need to help our children understand which gaming sites are legitimate and which aren't legitimate, but also just, be mindful when they're playing, and see, what they're playing, who they're playing with, what kind of conversations that they're having on these sites, because this has become a bigger danger to children as these online gaming platforms have become more popular. And of course, there are huge links to these platforms in terms of the screen time addiction that I spoke about earlier as well.
Amazing. So maybe one final word for this session. Online security is as simple as just A, B, and C, which I think our kids are familiar with. Always be careful. So the careful part is what you should take. It has more emphasis in terms of the kind of data and the kind of vulnerabilities or the kind of exposure that our kids will get when they're online. I think we have someone new today. Nikabed, I don't know if I've spelled your name well.
Are there any final questions? Feel free to take off your mic, or if we had any kids joining that have any questions. I see we have someone new to the group as well.
Maybe I've also added a comment in terms of online cyberbullying for children on chat. So you can pick that and see the different ways in which you can secure them and the different threats that they face when online.
All right.
So do you have something to say, Nikabed, or no? Okay, I think that's it, Sienna. Maybe we can come to a closure for the same.
Well, you guys, thanks so much for joining with us. I hope that we were able to give some insightful information on the risks and what we can do in order to keep our kids safe. We know that the internet isn't going anywhere, and to be honest, our kids are better than you. I'll speak for myself. My kids are better than using the internet than I am, and using technology in general. So I think it's just so important that we are able to have these discussions with our children and kind of walk this journey of using technology with them so that we can keep them safe. Does anybody have any final questions or comments before we bring it to a close?
There's a child somewhere there.
I just saw. Nika Bet, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. We are coming to a close, but do you have any questions before, or just anything you would like to quickly hear before we wrap it up? Feel free to turn the mic off and talk directly.
I think that's oh, sorry, he said he has a cold, he can't speak well.
That's okay. So are there any final words before we wrap up?
Maybe you can share the YouTube link to Nikabet so you can just, since he joined a little bit late, you can recap to what we've covered with Sienna.
Okay, let me do so. Nikabet, hi. I'm about to share the streaming link from this session with you. And I've sent a text SMS for people who couldn't join this morning. So here's the YouTube link, and you can feel free to join us for this evening session. I'm sharing it in the chat.
The evening session is going to be next week, next Saturday, correct?
It was supposed to be this Saturday, according to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Ready?
Have a good day ahead and an amazing weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sian and Eve, please remain behind.